Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
Good day, people. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise, and this is Build a Brand Wednesday, and I thank you for joining me. I know you call it Hump Day, but we're calling it Build a Brand Wednesday because you're not a hump. You don't need to get over no hump. You just keep on building and keep on growing. That's how you get over and up. All right. But here on the Afternoon Praise, we help people reach their defined level of success by helping them discover and develop their gifts. See, this week we are talking about systems, not surface systems, not motivational systems. We are talking about operational structure, workflow architecture, sustainable leadership, scalable execution, and organizational maturity. Monday, we expose your running on efforts, not systems. Tuesday, we talked about the hero complex is breaking your system. And today, we expose another major leadership problem. People are confusing tools, software, AI, automation, platforms, and equipment with operation maturity. But tools do not create sustainability. Structure does. Because a tool helps you execute one task. A system governs how execution happens consistently. That's today's conversation. Tools cannot replace structure. Let's look at Genesis 6:14. Make thee an ark, a gopher wood. Room shall thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without the pitch. God did not just give Noah vision, faith, motivation. You know what he gave him? He gave him dimensions. He gave him layers. He gave him specifications. He gave him structure, and he gave him blueprint. The ark survived because it has structural integrity. And many people today have tools, but no blueprint. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Join us on this heavenly journey, one song at a time, Wave Radio.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown, and we are here on this Build a Brand Wednesday. And let's talk about modern leadership is addicted to tools. See, modern culture is obsessed with tools. People constantly search for new software, new AI platforms, new cameras, new apps, new automation tools, new systems to buy. And many times the excitement of acquiring the tools create the illusion of progress. But purchasing a tool is not the same as operational growth. That's one of the biggest leadership misunderstandings today. Because tools cannot fix disorganization, inconsistency, emotional execution, lack of workflow, and operational chaos. See, many people are collecting tools while avoiding structure. And eventually they become operational overwhelm and high definition. That's dangerous because access to tools is not the same as operational maturity. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
You're riding the waves of faith and grace on Wave Radio.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise, and we are talking about tools cannot replace systems. Let's talk about the dopamine of new tools. Research shows novelty creates dopamine responses in the brain. That means many people genuinely feel productive when they first download a new app, buy new software, reorganize tools, and purchase equipment. But execution never changes. That's productivity theater. The brain mistakes preparation activities for meaningful operational progress. And many leaders stay trapped there for years. And constantly switching systems, trying new platforms, changing workflows emotionally, and reorganizing instead of execution. That creates instability because sustainable growth does not come from constantly changing tools. It comes from repeatable systems, operational consistency, and workflow maturity. A new tool cannot fix an old lack of structure. Listen to what I'm saying. A new tool cannot fix an old lack of structure. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. See, tools execute, systems sustain. Excuse me with that. See, this is the biggest distinction of today's conversation. A tool executes a task. A system governs how the task is done, when the task is done, why the task is being done, and where the task is being done. That task happens consistently. A camera is a tool, people. A content production workflow is a system. AI is a tool, people. An operational process for content planning, execution, editing, scheduling, distribution, archiving, all that stuff, that is a system. And many people buy tools hoping the tools itself creates consistency. It does not. Tools help you execute. Systems help you sustain. That's leadership maturity. Because sustainability requires what? Process. It requires governance. It requires workflow architecture. It requires repeatability. And many people are trying to build scalable brands without operational systems underneath them. You're going to fail every time. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise on this Build a Brand Wednesday. And you know what? Tools do not replace systems. They do not. Let's look at structure creates consistency. Consistency is rarely accidental. Consistency is structural. Strong brands are not built on random emotional bursts, occasional motivation, isolated good days. They are built on systems, workflows, routines, operational discipline. That's why organizations like Toyota, McDonald's, Amazon, airlines, hospitals depend heavily on process management. Because process creates reliability, predictability, sustainability, and trust. See, healthy systems reduce unnecessary variations. And that's powerful. Because people trust what behaves consistently, what communicates clearly, what executes predictably. Customers trust structure more than intensity. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
If you just tuned in, you're listening to Build a Brand Wednesday here on Wave Radio. Well, now you're listening to the Afternoon Praise, but it is Build a Brand Wednesday here on Wave Radio. And we are talking about tools. Tools are not your system. See, branding in high definition chaos, wow. A lot of us are doing it. See, many brands look polished, they look professional, they look organized, they look visually impressive, but internally, everything is chaos. That's branding in high definition chaos. See, the outside look excellent, but internally, workflows are inconsistent, communication is fragmented, execution is emotional. Systems are unstable, and eventually internal chaos leaks externally. Because structure eventually reveals itself. No amount of branding, graphics, technology, AI, or aesthetics can permanently hide operational instability. So let's talk about great branding cannot permanently cover weak infrastructure. I'm telling you, branding, you have to be consistent in what you are doing internally. So externally, your branding works for you every time. Because the more you brand, the more recognition you get, the more your business is exposed. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
If you just tuned in and you're listening to the Afternoon Praise, let's talk about the app hopping tax. Many leaders are losing operational momentum because they constantly switch tools. See, today it's one platform. Tomorrow it's another system. Next week it's another workflow. That creates cognitive friction, fragmented execution, operational confusion, workflow instability. See, every time you constantly restart systems emotionally, you create switching costs mentally. I'm gonna say that again. Every time you constantly restart systems emotionally, you create switching costs mentally. See, the brain now has to relearn process, reorganize workflow, rebuild operational habits, reestablish consistency. That's exhausting, people. See, many people are not suffering from the lack of opportunity. Nah, they are suffering from the lack of operational stability. And constantly changing tools, different apps, trying to hop on what's the new trend, what's the next big thing, without structure creates execution fatigue. And eventually, people spend more time reorganizing than actually building. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Bringing the sounds of heaven 24/7, Wave Radio.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. Now, let's talk about structure protects creativity. One of the biggest misconceptions about systems is believing structure kills creativity. See, a healthy structure actually protects your creativity because creativity struggles inside chaos. And when everything is disorganized, reactive, inconsistent, emotionally managed, the brain spends most of its energy surviving operational clutter instead of creating. See, systems remove unnecessary friction. It protects people. It protects your focus. It protects your clarity. It protects your innovation. And it protects your creative energy. That's why many creatives burn out. Not because they lack talent, because their talent consistently fight disorder. Structure creates room for creativity to function consistently. Healthy systems protect innovation from operational chaos. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown, and this is Build a Brand Wednesday, and we are talking about tools are not systems. They're not. They're just tools. They are not systems. See, the problem is not the tool, people. Many people blame the tool when execution fails. But often the issue is not the software, it's not the AI, it's not the cameras, it's not the app, nor is it the platform. The issue is lack of workflow architecture. A powerful tool inside a weak system still creates inconsistency. Because systems determine usage, timing, process, accountability, and repeatability. That's why some organizations achieve extraordinary results with basic tools, while others fail with expensive technology. Because structure matters more than access. Tools amplify systems. They do not replace them. That's operational maturity. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
Hey, if you got a shout out or request, hit us up and we got you. I want you to go on my social media. That's the Business Point God, Demetrius L. Brown. Let me know where you are listening from. We want to know. We want to give you a shout out, your city, your state. We want to know where you're listening from because, again, we appreciate you listening to the the show and supporting Wave Radio. But let's talk about Noah had more than faith. See, Noah did not survive the storm because he had motivation alone. He survived because he followed structure. Genesis 6 verse 14, make thee an ark of gopher wood. Room shalt thou make in the ark. God gave Noah dimensions, layers, specifications, materials, and architectural instruction. See, that's important, people, because vision without structure creates fragile outcomes. Many people today have inspiration, they have talent, they have tools, and some have opportunities, but they have no blueprint. And eventually, pressure exposes weak architecture. Faith started the assignment, structure sustained it through the storm. That's powerful. You pray to God, you ask God for the increase, but praying alone is not going to get you there. You got to have faith that he is doing it, and you got to start moving and building the structure of what you believe in God to do in your life. Just like Noah, he had faith, but he survived with a plan. He survived because he had the tools, he had the blueprint to build the ark and to make it and to survive the storm. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're tuned in on this Build a Brand Wednesday, and thank you again for joining us on this lovely Wednesday afternoon. But let's talk about Nehemiah built workflow architecture. Nehemiah did not just simply tell people, hey, work harder, work smarter. No, he created operational systems. Every family knew their section, they knew their responsibility, their role, they knew their response plan. That reduced confusion and bottlenecks and emotional reactions and organizational disorder. See, Nehemiah 4 verse 6, so built we the wall, for the people had a mind to work. That wasn't random motivation. That was alignment. That was governance. That was organizational structure, workflow clarity. The wall was completed in 52 days because structure reduced chaos. Organized systems accelerate sustainable execution. That's leadership maturity. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're tuned into the Afternoon Praise. You know, many people are executing emotionally. See, many people do not execute operationally. They execute emotionally. That means productivity change with their feelings. Workflow change with their mood. Structure changes with pressure, and consistency change with their energy. This creates unstable environments because emotional execution lacks operation reliability. Healthy systems reduce emotional inconsistency. That's why workflows matter, because systems stabilize execution doing what? Stress. Doing what? Pressure. Doing emotional fluctuation. Doing difficult seasons. Sustainable brands cannot be governed emotionally. They must be governed structurally. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're tuned in to the Afternoon Praise. Let's talk about process creates predictability. Yeah, I studied that. You had them P's. But process creates predictability. People trust predictive environments. That's true in business. That's true in ministry. That's true in leadership, branding, and customer experience. Customers trust consistency, reliability, clarity, and stability execution, not occasional excellence. You're open today and you're closed tomorrow. You're supposed to be open at 6 o'clock, but you're open to 6:30, 7. You know, that's not good. That's occasional excellency. You open on time sometimes, you got enough food sometimes. See, that's why systems matter, because systems create predictable outcomes, and predictable outcomes create trust. And many brand damage credibility because the experience change constantly depending on their emotions, their pressure, the leadership mood, and operational confusion. Healthy systems reduce unnecessary surprises. Predictability is a structural asset, and strong brands are built on trust. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're tuned into the Afternoon Praise. Let's talk about structure protects growth. See, growth exposes weak systems. That's why many brands struggle after expansion. The tools may improve, the audience may grow, the opportunities may increase, but weak infrastructure eventually get exposed under pressure. Because growth multiplies communication complexity, workflow pressure. It multiplies operational demand. It multiplies execution requirements. And if structure is weak, growth becomes stressful instead of sustainable. Growth without structure eventually exposes instability. That's why scalable brands require operational architecture underneath the vision. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. Let's talk about a tool without structure creates chaos faster. See, technology increases speed, but speed without structure creates faster chaos. And let's get into this. AI can produce more content, but without workflow, content becomes inconsistent. Communication becomes fragmented. Execution becomes reactive. See, automation without governance creates operational confusion faster. That's dangerous because now organizations become highly efficient in being disorganized. That's modern chaos, people. A tool without a system is just a high-tech way to create chaos. That's one of the biggest leadership lessons in this generation. AI is a tool, people. That's not your system. And let's be real, and the AI that you're using is a product. A company created a product using AI. And you're using a product, you're using a tool. So you have to put a system together. You have to know how to prompt AI. But if you don't have a system, you don't know what you are doing, you don't know how to prompt AI. So people, put a system together, okay? Systems over tools, all right? Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. Let me talk to the hoarders out there. The app hoarders, the software hoarders, or I got to get this new software. I got to get this because they say it worked this way. I got to get this because it worked that way. But you never learned how the other one works. You never gave it opportunity because you're lazy. You're mentally lazy. You didn't want to take the time to go through the growth process of what you're using. But guess what? You have to go through a growth process on any software or anything that you use. So stop collecting tools. See, many leaders keep searching for another app, another platform, another automation tool, another software solution, while avoiding operational discipline. See, workflows and governance and structure and repeatable execution, the issue is not always access. You got to stop avoiding those things. I'm going to say it again. You got to stop avoiding operational discipline for another software, another app. You got to stop avoiding workflows. You got to stop avoiding governance. You got to stop avoiding structure. You got to stop avoiding repeatable execution. And how are you avoiding these things? Because you keep jumping on the next thing you think is easy, the next tool, without having a sustainable system. And again, the issue is not always access. Sometimes the issue is architecture. Because sustainable organizations are not built through endless tool collections. They are built through process, consistency, workflow, structure, and systems thinking. Stop collecting tools and start engineering systems. That's a Build a Brand Wednesday. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise, and I thank you for joining me on this Build a Brand Wednesday. And today, I hope you learned something. I hope I was able to teach you that tools are not your systems. You have to have systems in place so that you can use your tools correctly. Because without systems, you don't know which tools to get. But a lot of business owners, we jump on fads. We jump on what's cool. Hey, ChatGPT, boom, I'm gonna jump on that, but I ain't gonna learn how to use it. I'm gonna get Gemini. I ain't gonna learn how to use it. I'm gonna get Claude, but I ain't gonna learn how to use it. I'm just gonna do what other people do. No, stop getting tools and systems and not learning how to use them so that, guess what? You can properly manage your systems. Tools, again, they're not systems. And let's look at 1 Corinthians 14, verse 40. Let all things be done in decent and in order. Order matters, people. Structure matters. Systems matters. Many people today have advanced tools, expensive software, powerful technology, AI capabilities, branding platforms, but no operational structure. And eventually chaos appeared beneath the surface. This week, we are learning systems sustain what effort starts. And today, we exposed tools cannot replace structure because tools execute tasks. Systems create sustainability. Structure creates consistency. Workflow protects growth. Governance protect vision. And if your brand feels inconsistent, do not just ask, what tools do I need next? Ask, what workflow is missing? Ask, what structure is weak? Ask, what process is undefined? Ask, where is operational chaos hiding? Because many organizations are operating chaotically in high definition. And remember this, a tool without a system is just a high-tech way to create chaos. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise, and I thank you for joining me on this Build a Brand Wednesday. I will catch you tomorrow on Thrive Thursday. I am out of here. Peace.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.